Okay, so this is another one of the functional food programs that was created by the Department of Family and Community Health Sciences at Rutgers. This one is going to be tea. So it's a follow-up to last month's chocolate. And for those of you who participated in my coffee, they had a coffee one. Some of the information you're going to see is very similar for tea and for coffee. So, okay, so now it's not forwarding. Why is it not forwarding? There we go. All right, so, sorry. So what we're going to talk about is increasing your knowledge about the plant itself, origin, some historical facts, processing of the tea once it's harvested, and preparation of tea. Also to try and understand some of the current research and possible health benefits of tea, and to identify the recommendations for including tea in a healthful plant-based diet. And this whole series is really about healthy plant-based diets. So that's point anyway. So tea is an infusion drink similar to chocolate and coffee. And when we talk about tea in this particular presentation, we're talking about the Camellia sinensis, which is the actual tea leaf coming from the tea plant. We refer to chamomile as a tea, and that's what's on the picture is chamomile, but they're actually tisanes, which is a drink made by pouring boiling water onto dried or fresh flowers or herbs or something like that. So it's a little bit different. But we're going to be, when we say tea, we're referring to the actual tea that's harvested from tea leaves. So this is actually a tea plantation in Japan. That's Mount Fuji in the background. And this is cultivated tea. So tea plants, I don't think, do we have, no. Okay, let me go back. So tea plants are, they've been groomed and cultivated to be about 4 to 6 feet tall and sort of in a fan shape, so it makes them easier to harvest. But actually in the wild, they can grow up to 30 feet high. And they like subtropical monsoon temperatures, which are warm and humid in the summer and cool and dry in the winter. This is a close-up of what a tea plant actually looks, a cultivated tea plant actually looks like. And this is a flower, which is on the tea plant. Okay, so tea was actually, the first mention of tea is about 2,000 years ago. Asian tribes used it, and they used it as a solid food. It was they used to chew it. And they think that possibly they got that idea from the animals who they saw chewing it. And it's similar to one of the myths about how coffee got its start when a shepherd saw his sheep chewing on these berries and then having all this energy. And so the rest is history. However, it then got to be an actual drink. I don't know, but this is it's urban legend. We don't know if it's true or not. But anyway, so they don't really know, but they do know that when it first appeared, it was chewed. And then religious communities took it over, and they were first to use tea to make beverages, and it became more of a part of their ritual. And by the way, tea is still chewed in places, rural places in Burma and Thailand, so that stayed around. Some religious communities in Asia were first to use tea leaves to make a beverage, and it became a ritual, part of their ritual. By the 16th century, 50% of the world was drinking tea, and it was thought of an excellent alternative to water because water was often contaminated. So at first I puzzled over that, but then I realized that you have to boil water to make tea. So if you're dealing with contaminated water, you're hopefully by boiling it, reducing most of the contamination. And so tea became really almost the beverage of choice. And it surpassed every other infusion drink through its many positive attributes. So what were those attributes? So it can be produced cheaply. You just grow those plants. They were cultivated. This is a really positive economic and agricultural thing, is that it bears a new leaf every 6 weeks. So it's almost perpetually, yeah. So you really sort of never run out of tea leaves. It is easy to prepare. Yeah. And you only need a small amount of it. So you could see how it could be a very profitable crop. It does grow in a large range of climates, even though I said it had that specific need. There are a lot of climates in which it grows well. It stores well. It's safe to drink. And it provides a relaxed feeling, which they believe comes from L-threonine, which is an amino acid. We'll talk about, it's going to be mentioned later, which sort of slows your brain waves and calms you down. And then it tastes good. Well, I'm learning how to like the taste of it. For some people, it tastes good. For some people, are coffee people. But yeah, for most people, it's a tasty drink. I've recently been adding something called hibiscus tea, hibiscus honey, my tea, which is honey, has hibiscus flowers mixed in with it. So you have the benefit of the hibiscus and the honey. So with the honey, I like tea. So early uses of tea. It was used in meditation and for medicinal purposes. So the meditation part, monks thought that it increased their mental acuity, but it also was somewhat relaxing. And it also is traded as currency. And in some cases, it still used as currency. It was also thought, now these are the medicinal purposes. It helped, supposedly, they thought it helped eyesight. It helped alleviate rheumatism. It helped complaints of the head, and I guess that might be the L-threonine, calming down anxiety. And also it was thought to help the heart, liver, the stomach, and also cleaning sores. They used it to clean sores, and that actually makes a little bit of sense because the water was not, it wasn't a contaminated liquid. So it was one instance, and where was this? In Tibet. It was actually consumed as their primary nutritional intake. So water, salt, and fat were added to the tea and then mixed. And then it was mixed with milk, butter, and meat, and a meat product. And they drink supposedly 70 to 80 cups of this a day, according to the research. I don't know, but I mean, you can see how it would give you, carbs and fat and meat and whatever. So yeah, so it was used as nutritional intake. It provided protection against cold. It's a very warming drink. It can warm up your body internally. And it also, a very big aspect of it is that it created a social outlet, and it gave people a chance to meet over a cup of tea. And in fact, it was this particular attribute led to it being a very big deal in Britain and starting the British tea culture. So that was interesting. So English tea habit or tradition is attributed to a Portuguese princess, for Charles II's wife, who came with a dowry of tea. And so, but at that point, it was not easily obtained. So only the wealthy were able to drink it. But then as they developed faster ships, these clipper ships, they were fast, were inexpensive to build, and they brought tea from Asia. So they brought tea from Asia, and that really made it become part of everyday life by the 19th century. So an interesting thing is, it became a part of the culture. Then it became an afternoon tea, which was something that they would take at like 4 p.m. You get into that sort of doldrums from 3 to 4, where your blood sugar might drop or your energy is low. And Queen Victoria made it a very big deal and a high tea, because she really encouraged that whole tradition. However, working class people consider high tea more like what we would consider dinner. So they eat their high tea is about 6 p.m. and it's an evening meal. It makes sense because a lot of times when you watch English movies or from past times or now, you hear them say your tea is ready, and it's dinner time. It's obvious from what's going on in the story that it's dinner time. So I never quite understood that. So now I do. So high tea for the aristocracy was more like a 4 p.m. Display of actually everything, tea sandwiches, scones, all kinds of stuff. For the working class, high tea became more like an evening meal, which I found to be interesting. So customs in Asia. So China during the Sung Dynasty, the tea ceremony became a very big deal and very important. And that's where powdered teas started, because they started using powdered teas. Then it sort of disappeared from, that tea ceremony disappeared and reappeared in Japan with whole matcha, the green tea. They use a powdered green tea known as matcha. We drink matcha just in however we drink it, but the actual preparation of matcha and the serving of matcha in the tea ceremony takes years to learn how to do properly. And even the people that attend matcha ceremonies, they have to know the response to every single step of the way. So it takes a very skilled practitioner. So a Japanese tea ceremony is an art form. So we drink matcha just as tea, but in Japan, they use it as a very ceremonial type of beverage.
Judy?
Yes.
Judy, go ahead. You want to do it first, then I'm going to.
My question is maybe you'll get to this. How do they make powder from the tea leaves?
I do not know. I assume that, I think we talk about that a little later, the different grades of tea, but I assume that they grind it up. I know that the powdered tea I have is just like, like I have tea bags and I also have powdered.
Yeah.
Tea tastes the same, but it's a very fine powder. I don't know. I could look that up and I can get back to you. Or if you're really interested, the company that I buy my things from is called Bique, and all of their teas are powdered. So if you went to their website, Bique, as is the name of the company, and they might. I haven't really looked closely at how they have a whole process. So I really, if you'd like me to, I can look into that. Actually, should know that. All right, so the
wait, so Judy, while we're still the question part, if you don't mind. So I have the matcha tea from Trader Joe's. I have 7 little packets. It cost me $1 for each packet. Every day you have to spend $1 if you want to do it. But long story short, I went on the website and you have to have a whisk, and I found the whisk and it's $20. So then I went on the YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff. And then I found out that you can do it in your NutriBullet or a blender. They want that foam. So you put 8 ounces of, in my tea, 8 ounces of liquid, could be almond milk, could be water, whatever, hot or cold. And then they want that foam. And so you can use your NutriBullet, but they want that foam and save $20 on the whisk.
Because you're just drinking matcha tea for the health benefits of it. But if you're really interested, like one of the companies I get my fermented tea from is called the Tea Spot, and they have a YouTube video. It's a whole ritualistic thing, even for people who, it doesn't matter, Beth, you can drink it any way you want. But I'm just saying, even people who are really tea aficionados, they are really into the whole process. But if you have found a way, easily make it and you enjoy it. That's all that really matters, because there's a lot of health benefits in it. So
it's just for the health part. I don't need the ritual. I've done the ritual.
No. I understand. I understand. I was just pointing out to you that.
No, I'm not being fair.
If you told a tea aficionado, they would probably have a conniption. But that's so what,
And I'm telling you and Barbara.
I'm teasing you, Beth. I'm teasing you. I'm not going to report you to the tea police.
All right, don't report me to the tea police.
No, I will not report you to the tea police. And by the way, this is being recorded, so.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh, get me out of there.
No, it's all right. It's all right. It's fine. No. It's really okay. I just wanted you to understand that the use of matcha. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm done. It's
to a true tea aficionado is a whole ritual. But anyway, but it takes years to learn. So, I mean, what are you supposed to not drink it in the meantime? So in the USA, it's a very popular beverage in the early years of the colonies, very early. And as we had talked about the coffee, the presentation I did, tea went out the window during the pre-Revolutionary War because of the Boston Tea Party and the whole decline in consumption, because it was a protest about taxation without representation. And that was really all about how they were being taxed for their tea. So they said, okay, to heck with you guys, please go in the Boston Harbor and we're going to start to drink coffee. So it really became rarer to drink tea in this country. Eventually, it did come back in the 18th and the late 18th, early 19th century, or mid 18th century. It really did become a drink that people were increasing their use of. And in 1888, is that, we have that? No, okay. There was the Wadmalaw Island, South Carolina tea plantation, which is it started out as a tea garden. It's now a plantation. It's actually pretty large, and it's now owned by Bigelow Tea. And it's not the only tea grown in the USA, because I did a little research. There are a lot of small tea farms all over the South, and just recently started the last couple of years in Hawaii, where they're also growing tea, but not on the mass scale of this tea plantation in South Carolina. So it did, come back. Okay. So Americans consume 3.6 billion gallons of tea annually. Now, 65% of that is brewed using tea bags. 84% is black tea, only 15% is green tea, and 85% of, I guess, the 3.6 is iced tea. So even of the brewed teas or the iced, the tea bags, 85% is iced tea. And actually, tea bags and iced tea were developed in this country in 1901. So those did not come from Europe. We developed them here, ease of use, I guess. So yeah, iced tea was something created here. And, in the South, they always talk about sweet tea. So that's a very big thing in the South and has been for years. So most tea drinkers are in the North, East, and the South. So we know the South, that's where most of the tea plantation and the tea gardens are down there, but in the North, it's probably also a warming drink as well. So just quickly, these are the countries where it is now grown. For the last 500 years, it's really spread. It's really grown all over the world, and tea is actually secondary only to water as a beverage. So now we're going to talk about declassification. So you're probably familiar with all of these: white tea, oolong tea, white tea, green tea, oolong, then black tea. I'm sorry, that's the way it goes: white, green, oolong, black. And the processing method of the actual tea leaves determines the type of tea. Now, tea is classified by the amount of oxidation the leaves have received. By the way, initially, oxidation was called fermentation, but people thought fermentation meant that there was alcohol in it. So just like with chocolate liqueur, because there's no alcohol in, people get confused when they hear these terms. So it became the term was used oxidation rather than fermentation. So these are the young tender leaves. They're actually picked right before the leaves unroll. There's no oxidation at all. And it's very mild flavor. And so usually it has other flavors added to it. And then we know our green tea, which is very popular. There is no oxidation of this either, but it is eliminate the enzymes, heat it either with steam or in a hot pan. So it is processed, it's not oxidized. And that in a little while, you'll understand why that's important. Oolong tea is oxidized for 2 to 3 days. Oh, and the taste, well, we all know the taste of green tea. It's a little bit milder than black tea, and oolong tea is somewhere in between green and black tea. It's oxidized for 2 to 3 days, and when they oxidize it, they let it lay out and in the sun. And it's oxidized less than black tea, and it somewhere, as I said, taste and strength is between green and black tea. So black tea is the most common tea worldwide. 98% of tea sold is black tea. And it's a complete oxidation, like 2 to 3 days for the oolong. This is, I think, a week. And black tea is graded, and it's graded by grades that were created during the 19th century by the British Tea Company, and it pretty much still stands today. So the 3 different grades, and this might be where we get into the powder. Whole leaves by size is the whole leaf, and that's supposedly the best tea. Then there are broken leaves, which are also thought to make a good tea, but they're not quite as high grade as whole leaves. And then there's what they call dust, which is very small pieces, and fannings, which are even smaller. So I guess that's where it gets into powder, but I'm not sure that that's what they use for powdered tea. I don't know. But the dust and the fannings are used for tea bags. So that it might be where they get the powdered tea from. So now, in addition to having these 4 categories, teas have varieties similar to wine, identified by the region or the estate that they're grown in, and they're also grades, as we said, due to leaf size. And most teas we drink are blends. They're usually not from one region. They also have the subgroups, as you can see, where it's orange pico, and it's not really orange. Orange pico refers to a place where it's made. There's yellow tea, Kokicha, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then there are also flavored teas, and the one that we are most familiar with is the chai, the Masala Chai, which has milk or coconut milk or some creamy liquid, and then all kinds of spices like cardamom, ginger, whatever. So then there are different variations of it. So those are the different tea varieties. Now, Kokicha, which I had never heard of, is a winter tea, and it's apparently made from twigs and pruned leaves of the tree, which is sort of sustainable or environmentally friendly. Like, they even use the twigs. They dry roast them over a fire. And in Japan, it's considered a health food and used in macrobiotic diets. I looked into that, and the only thing I can think of, because I know macrobiotics is supposed to be very alkaline, that it is a much more alkaline drink. It is a lot of alkalinity, and I'm assuming that's why it's in a macrobiotic diet. And some people feel that alkaline liquids are better for the pH balance of the body. So, any questions up to now? Except for the powdered tea question, which I'm going to find you an answer. Okay. All right. So, what's in tea? So it's 2 calories per 8 ounces. And they're actually minerals: magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, fluoride. Remember fluoride. There are stimulants. There's caffeine. It's half the amount of caffeine in coffee. I'll just give you that information in just a bit. 47 milligrams per 8 ounces. And in decaffeinated tea, there are 2 milligrams. There's something called theobromine, which is it works on the central nervous system, and it also has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. And there's only 5 milligrams of that per 8 ounce, but some people have sensitivity to that. Also, I believe it's the theobromine in coffee and chocolate that makes it not a healthy food for dogs. So I know dogs are not supposed to have it. Yeah, it affects the central nervous system, and I guess in dogs so. Now, an 8-ounce cup of coffee has 95 milligrams. Decaf coffee has 2 milligrams, similar. A 6-ounce cup of hot chocolate has 4 milligrams, not a lot. But a 12-ounce bottle of cola actually has 30 milligrams of caffeine. So, as we know, it has a lot. So, health. It's what substances are in tea that are healthy, and they're polyphenols and catechins. And you probably heard of I forget what that stands for. Did I write it down? No, but EG, CG, EGC, the catechin. You've probably heard of these if you ever delved into why green tea is healthy. There are also thurubigins and theoflavins. These are all flavanols and polyphenols that have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties. Now, when the tea gets oxidated, a lot of the catechins are eliminated, but they turn into things like thiosinensins and flavanols, which they also have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. So, and as I said, L-theanine is found in green tea, which is one of the reasons that supposedly it's good for meditation, because it really affects the brain waves and gives you a calming feeling. So that's that. Now, this is just, I mean, if you want to go see this, I could send you this slide, or you can see it online. It basically just shows you the white tea is steamed, the green tea is withered, steamed, or pan-fried and then dried. The oolong is withered, bruised, partially oxidized, pan-fried and dried. And the black tea is withered, rolled, fully oxidized, fire dried. These are all the things. And then less processing, higher the catechins, which are mostly what they've done a lot of the research on. And the more of the processing, it turned into theoflavins and thorubigins, which also have a lot of anti-inflammatory and some of the same anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Okay, so, well, actually, I'm moving right along here, so I don't know. Research on tea. Let me just get to that slide. All right, so Chinese medicine, you know, was a very big, it's a very big thing in Chinese medicine. And only small amounts were used, but no, I'm sorry, that's not true. Chinese medicine was the first place in which it appeared to have, it was used for its medicinal values. And of course, weren't any tests at that time. I mean, we're going back, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, but anecdotally, they found people that drink tea had some benefits. And here I'm drinking this pure green tea, and I will tell you, it is having a definite positive effect on my digestion, on my GI tract, absolutely, without a doubt. So problem is, in animal studies, there's a lot of strong evidence. In human studies, it's inconsistent. Why? Because in animal studies, first of all, the environment is totally controlled. They know what the animal is eating. They know what its quote unquote most lifestyle is. They are also using very large amounts of tea. They're feeding the animal very large amounts of tea. So when you switch over to human studies, which so far have been mostly epidemiological, which means they look at people over a long course of time, how much they drink tea and what some of the medical history is, they get inconsistent results because they haven't done studies yet that are controlled, where they know exactly what the person is eating. So when you do an epidemiological study, it's hard to really eliminate the confounding variables because there are so many of them. They could have an unhealthy lifestyle, they could smoke, and people self-report in these kinds of studies, so you don't always get the true picture. So they have found, and they feel that polyphenols have limited bioavailability. And that's what you find in green tea mostly. And then caffeine, theanine, which is the L-theanine that calms you, is highly available. So there's some question in their minds, but you really don't know how much of a polyphenol you need to have a positive effect on your health. They haven't looked into that. That's their findings so far. Of course, the type of tea and the sample size of the study is a very big factor in all of this. Okay, so here are some of the things that have shown promising results. So in animal studies, it's pretty consistent with many sites, many organ sites that can have an effect on cancer prevention. Specifically the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the colon, you know, the small intestine, so all digestive areas, but it's less consistent that you know, in population studies, though it has apparently somewhat statistically significant when looking at evidence of bladder cancer. So apparently it does show a little bit more promise. The studies are ongoing, and nobody is saying that it just because it's consistent in the animal studies and inconsistent in population studies, that these benefits are not there. That they're not just saying that, they're just saying that the studies are ongoing and they really don't know yet because it's newer research. Okay, so metabolic syndrome, weight, and diabetes, green tea in animal studies consistently positive. Metabolic syndrome is defined as somebody with a high waist circumference and either two out of the next things I'm going to mention, high triglycerides, abnormal glucose levels, blood pressure, and low HDL. So if you have a high waist circumference and one or two of those other symptoms, you're considered to have metabolic syndrome. They have found that what the results are is that lose weight, but it doesn't change weight circumference. And it does lower your BMI and your low density lipoprotein, which are all beneficial. But from a health standpoint, everybody has always been focused on BMI. That was really epidemiological statistics applied to, no, I'm sorry. It was epidemiological, but those studies were done with young, healthy college men, and then they were applied to the whole society, which is, it makes no sense at all. Why would a body mass index in a young man number is going to really affect my ability, my chances of getting morbidities or diseases and things like that. It just doesn't make sense. So over the last 10 years, they've looked more at waist circumference, because if you carry your fat in your middle, you are more prone to several diseases like heart disease, because the fat in your gut is less stable. So you might be more prone to heart disease and metabolic syndrome and things like that. So again, population studies show some inconsistencies, though there are many positive outcomes. As I said, it does lower weight, lowers your BMI and your LDL. And I have to mention, by the way, if you have metabolic syndrome, you are more at risk for type 2 diabetes. So they're recommending that you have 3 to 4 cups of tea per day, because at least it will alleviate some of the causative factors. Now, in this country, if a little is good, more is better. So there are a lot of green extracts out on the market, but they caution you to be careful, because they can cause hepatotoxicity, they can cause liver damage. Again, that's a very concentrated amount, and that's the initial findings when you take green tea extracts, and there's no indication yet they are a better preventative than just drinking several cups of tea a day. So I want to warn people against tea extracts. Okay, cardiovascular disease. Again, animal studies results did not completely translate to human studies. And intake also in these studies for humans recommendations were either more than 2 cups a day or 3 to 6 cups a day. So nothing is really that consistent. But population studies have shown that tea drinkers do have a 28% reduction of coronary artery disease, and that there seems to be a trend that it decreases the risk of stroke, increases cholesterol level, and reduces systolic and diastolic blood pressure. That's for the green tea. So that's interesting, and they're actually willing to state that. Black tea studies show no protective effect, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some protective effect from the antioxidants and the flavonols in black tea. And they're thinking that the benefit to the heart, coronary artery disease, and stroke is because low density lipoprotein, the bad cholesterol, is reduced an intake of green tea. Also, there's something called vasodilation, which opens up the arteries and makes the blood flow more freely and less likely to have a stroke. And again, part of the problem, as always, is that when they do these studies, there are discrepancies with diet, lifestyle, and socioeconomic status. It sometimes plays a role in the findings. So in neurodegenerative diseases, they're saying that there is some indication that tea decreases the risk of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's disease, some reduction in risk for Parkinson's disease, and also Huntington's disease. So what am I can't read. Oh, you're thinking that because of some of the positive neurologic, the L-theanine and some of the other flavonols have a positive effect on brain function, they feel that tea might improve cognitive function, especially in older women. And the thing about theanine is it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that's the one that tends to calm the brain and deal well with anxiety. So now, this next one is new, and they didn't really give me any notes, and I couldn't find much on it, but they're talking about coronavirus in tea. So catechins in green tea does protect against viral infections. And then not having to do with coronavirus, theoflavins in black tea are protected against hepatitis C. So that's liver disease. So that, and that played out in some of the previous research. And simulated studies suggest possible protection against coronavirus. And I guess the tea consumption campaigns they've looked in Sri Lanka and the Indian Tea Association are running these studies. So, I don't see any reason why that would not necessarily have happened here. I don't see any reason why that would not be true. I mean, it has so many other health benefits. So, okay. So research and review. So there are inconsistencies with human studies. And the antioxidant activity may be the thing that's helpful in disease prevention. So it's shown that in animal studies, not as clear in human studies, but again, they have not been able to allow for some of the fact that these are not controlled studies or double-blind controlled studies. So they recommend a moderate intake of tea, 3 to 4 cups a day. I don't know that it's necessarily bad to have more than that. I mean, but more research is definitely needed. Let me just see if there's anything I'm leaving out. Okay, no. So now we're going to talk about tea as a beverage, some of the other health effects. So it can decrease iron absorption of something called non-heme iron. And that's the iron that you get from plant products. And it's, by the way, it's not well absorbed anyway, unless you have an acid like vitamin C or some other acid like orange, if you ate spinach and orange or kale and orange. You need an acid with any plant non-heme iron that you intake, or it won't be properly, it won't be bioavailable and it won't be digested properly. So if you do have iron issues, they're saying, look, the best thing to do is just not to eat anything that you are using as an iron source with tea. As I said, it's non-heme iron. It's not heme iron, which is the kind of iron you get from animals. Somebody had a question? No. Okay, it seems to be protective against bone fractures. So I don't know, they don't necessarily say why, but then it goes on to say it promotes oral health because of fluoride. Now, fluoride is part of the process of building bone. It's not a major part of it, and vitamin K is also in that whole mix. So it's vitamin K in green tea, and that is important, of course, if you're on any anticoagulants, because your vitamin K has to stay stable if you're on anticoagulants. Otherwise, it could make them work better and lead to hemorrhaging and bleeding, or it could affect them in the opposite way. So very hot tea and the GI tract is a cancer risk. I know that very hot tea is definitely a risk factor in esophageal cancer. And then of course there's the caffeine. And when we talked about coffee, we found that caffeine is no longer the boogeyman. It does have beneficial properties, but it also can affect people in a negative way, making them jittery, making them anxious, speeding up your, increasing your blood pressure. So it's one of those things that you have to moderate, or you have to see how it affects you and make a decision about, whether or not, how much and whether or not you're going to drink it. And of course, as I said, green tea extracts in high doses could be toxic. Okay, so decaffeinated coffee, and here I actually pulled out the note because, so there are many ways to decaffeinate coffee, and the CO2, the critical carbon dioxide, is the best option, but it's a little bit, it's the safest and the most non-toxic, and it protects the tea taste and health promoting components. It's expensive. So they do things like ethyl lactate, ethyl acetate, not ethyl lactate, ethyl acetate. And I don't know if that's when I used to hear that they decaffeinated things using cleaning fluid. And I don't know if that's what they were talking about. There's also now, where is this? Microwave enhanced vacuum ice water extraction. That's the MVIE, which is less, it doesn't involve any chemicals. Ethyl lactate's a new solvent from corn fermentation, and it's approved by the FDA and has been tested in green tea leaves. And liquefied dimethyl ether, which is another one that I'm not completely sure because of the chemical of what it is. It's a new technique that completely removes caffeine from green tea leaves while retaining a good amount of the catechins. And that's part of the problem in this, is that some of these remove more of the catechins, the health promoting elements of green tea. So it becomes a little bit important. Okay. Oh, and methylene chloride, maybe that's what they were using, potentially carcinogenic. I have always gotten coffee that is water decaffeinated. I have not paid too much attention because I really don't drink a lot of tea, so I don't drink a lot of decaffeinated tea. So I really don't know if they use the same method to decaffeinate tea as they do for coffee, but I know that I have always tried to look for Swiss processed water decaffeinated because I know that that's a healthy method. Okay, any questions about any of that?
No?
Okay. All right, so then we've done this one before. I mean, this is a series, as I said, from the Rutgers Department of Family and Community Health Sciences. And so they are always acknowledging the sustainable tea, which is part of the National Organic Program, has to be certified. Approved organizations, as they have on a list of allowed and prohibited substances that can be used both in growing it and in processing it. And it focuses on good soil quality and plant health. And by the way, a lot of people, I've heard people say, well, why am I spending all this money on organic when it's coming from overseas? There is a USDA accredited certifying agency for overseas produce, and it's under the auspices of the USDA. So they monitor the how it operates. So it, the integrity is there for the overseas and for the non-United States produced organic produce, like the stuff that comes from Mexico. Fair trade is basically, I think we mentioned this before, made according to strict standards, entail safe working conditions, protect the environment, sustainable livelihoods for the people that are growers. So they empower and uplift communities. They give communities, it's important to give communities their own resources to be able to sustain themselves by farming or whatever. And fair trade certified products could be beverages, food, flowers, clothing could be produced under fair trade certification, some beauty products. And we talked about the Rainforest Alliance also, which is more of an environmentally sustainable supporting kind of certification. It protects shade trees, maintain wildlife corridors so that wildlife does not completely lose its habitat and become extinct. So it's the emphasis is on people that produce according to the Rainforest Alliance rules, conserve natural resources, improve productivity and income potential, and create a world where people and nature thrive in harmony. And I think all three of these things are also, they sort of support that kind of thing. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to talk about preparing tea. So black tea, you use a teapot. This is loose tea mostly, or it could be actually a tea bag. I think they use one teaspoon of loose tea or one tea bag for each cup, and then one for the pot. So you boil the water, and they want you to boil filtered water. They also want you to boil it, but not for a long period of time, because cold water is fully oxygenated, so it's better to start with cold water. The longer you boil it, the less oxygenated it becomes, and apparently the more it pulls the tannins out of the tea when you're brewing them, and the longer you leave the tea brewing, especially in water that's been boiled for a long period of time, you can get a very bitter tea. So then you steep the tea for 3 to 5 minutes, and then they say you strain it and put it into another teapot for drinking, or just whatever, but you take the tea leaves out. Green tea is only steeped for 1 minute. Oolong tea, you use hot water, not boiling water. I'm sorry, green tea and oolong tea, you both use hot water, not boiling water. And in fact, I have figured out on my microwave that if I heat water for about 1.5 minutes, it's somewhat below boiling. So I use that because I'm using powdered teas, and they recommend that for powdered tea. Green tea is going to brew for 1 minute, and oolong tea is going to steep, for 5 to 7 minutes, and white tea for 3 to 4 minutes. And let me just, so I said that. Yeah, the longer you boil, the more oxygen you lose and the decrease in taste. And you don't want to steep it too long. I mentioned that. And yeah, okay. So storing it, you need to store it in a container that is going to keep it safe from light, air, odor, humidity, and all of those things. And it can last for a couple of years, but you have to keep it, you have to store it properly. Okay, did I get it? So we're actually not going to run over, but anyway, so this is the whole idea of drinking tea as part of a healthy diet, and the National Beverage Coalition developed this healthy beverage guidelines. So water is, and they're by levels. It's sort of like old food guide pyramid, where at the base were all the grains and the healthier foods, and as you went up the pyramid, foods were less and less. You ate less. They recommended you eat less of them because they had less healthful benefits. So start with water at level 1. And then they go to tea and coffee, which are unsweetened, at level 2. And then low-fat milk, and then get into the non-calorically sweetened beverages, and then fruit juices, and then alcohol and beer, and then the calorically sweetened beverages without nutrients. And those are like the coffee drinks and the aids, this lemonade and all those other things that basically don't have a whole lot of nutrients, but have more sugar and added fat in them. So I don't think this is anything that you guys don't know. So were there any other questions or?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Now, Judy,
Yeah.
would you talk more about what are the green tea extracts that are toxic? What are those products?
Any green tea extract. Now, I used to take ones by a company called Pure Inventions. And what it is, it's just a concentrated, very, very concentrated, because they take polyphenols and all the active ingredients out of the tea and they concentrate it in a liquid, like a tincture or something like that. And apparently, while drinking tea has not been no indication of hepatotoxicity, and I will tell you that I looked this up. I was looking up hepatotoxicity, like things that affect the liver. I was shocked to find green tea extract. So I've known this for quite a while, that because I guess you're concentrating all the active ingredients, it can have a negative effect on your liver. And my theory about things like that is that Mother Nature knows the best kind of package to deliver positive nutrients and health providing nutrients. And I'll give you an example. You all know that aspirin and salicylic acid is very irritating to the stomach. Does everybody, you're aware of that, I guess. It can be very irritating to the stomach. Well, salicylic acid is a major ingredient in ginger. And don't we take ginger to help with stomach upset? So that's why I'm saying, leave it to Mother Nature. Do not mess with Mother Nature's package on how she delivers these things, because that's when you start to concentrate them, as you have these negative effects. So I don't know exactly what the hepatotoxicity is, but I have heard that before. That and I don't know how much you have to take or how much you don't have. What the levels are. I could find that out for you as well if you'd like. I could do a little bit more looking into that for you. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Well,
it's hard to find green tea, though. It's interesting because
it's hard to find what?
Well, green tea. Let me the iced green tea that has no sugar in it, and there's a very good product that Pepsi puts out, which I've had here at the Atrium, and they're trying to get it for me again, and the company is out of it. They just either don't sell enough, that they don't keep it.
Does it come in a liquid? Is it a bottle or a can?
It's in a bottle. It's in a bottle.
Do you know the name of it?
I can tell you. I have one left, and I can get it. I'll tell you.
Well, you can email me, because I'd like to know, and I'd like to look into it, because if it's something
you can get it. They do have it at 7-Eleven and various stores, but it's still very hard to get.
Did you try Amazon?
I haven't tried Amazon, no.
I probably shouldn't be saying that because we're recording this, but yeah, I would try Amazon.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Do text me that or email me
Sure.
that, and I'll see if I can find out anything. And then so if
Yeah.
I can get you any more information about green tea extracts, I'll be happy to do that. And also powdered, process for
Right.
powdered tea. This is information. Now this is going to go up online in YouTube, or I can send you this slide if you're interested in any of the any resources to learn more about tea. So that's available to you.
Okay.
And this is just a poem that they included. And it's sort of, you know, when I drink tea, I am conscious of peace. Cool breath of heaven rises in my sleeves and blows away any cares. And they don't know who wrote that, but you know, they say tea, we sort of know tea as a refreshing, renewing kind of a drink. It reduces anxiety. It gives us feeling of calm. And it was one of the reasons that the Taoists and the Buddhists use it in meditation as well, because they feel that it gave them clarity and also peace and calm. So it's a pretty, you know, it's a pretty, glad I'm moving over to tea. I still like my coffee. I'm beginning to enjoy my tea more and the way I feel and just how my body seems to really like it in terms of, you know, how I feel better and things like that. So, and then just to let you know, in 2 months, I'm going to be doing, like in June, I'll be doing mushrooms. And in August, I'll probably be doing berries. And in October, I'll probably be doing the vegetables to table, a celebration of the harvest. And in the meantime, I've connected with somebody at Monmouth Medical, which is starting a wellness center, an RD there, who is probably going to be working with us to give you more. It's not what you should eat, what you shouldn't eat kind of thing, because everybody basically knows that, but more things that are a little bit more food oriented. This is food and lifestyle. Those will be a little bit more clinical and, you know, things like that. So that look for that to be coming.
And maybe, Judy, we can have, it won't be Zoom anymore, it'll be in person, and we could have cooking together and all this stuff that makes it a little more fun.
Happened here. I completely lost my screen. Oh, that's why. Let me move this so I could stop the recording. And then we could talk. Whoops. Oh boy. Okay. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you all, and now I'll stop the recording.